out to identify violent gangs and explored the theory, widely held at the time, that they were linked to extreme right-wing groups.
At the bottom of the hierarchy are the youngsters. They call themselves the halfway line, and when it comes to aggro, they imitate their elders. But as they grow older, they have a career choice to make. Some of them graduate to treatment. They're the ones in the surgical masks. Although one of Millwall's heavy mobs, treatment don't pick fights, but they're always there when they happen. In the trench warfare of the terraces, it's F Troop who go over the top. F Troop are the real nutters, self-confessed loonies like Harry the dog, who go looking for fights and are seldom disappointed. And a scheduled ruck took place.
The programme became part of football folklore. This is the view of Millwall that has become familiar, building up notoriety for people like Harry the dog. But 12 years later, the young man leading the chanting in the film remains critical of their approach.
Well, the Panorama programme done many interviews with Millwall supporters, and when it was actually come out on the telly, it was a little bit one-sided. I mean, we have, as I said before, we have got tough supporters, and a lot of people are proud of that reputation. But they came around and interviewed me, and I told them a few things about Millwall, which they just wasn't interested in, like the Sunday markets or whatever we was doing then. But it wasn't really news to them. It's the same little story. They wanted to jump on the old bandwagon, not Millwall.
Well, after the Panorama programme, a lot of the troublemakers, a lot of the hooligans, started to take themselves seriously. They started to believe their own publicity, and it made them do it all the more. I thought it was just a sort of a couple of nutters having a fight over there. That's it, you know, police come on, bund them away, that was it. They actually took themselves seriously, and they went out to sort of start causing trouble because getting the papers...
It became premeditated.
Yeah, cut out to the violence, you know, a little scrapbook and all that sort of thing. That's right. Got it on video indoors. Prized possession on the shelf in the cupboard, like sideboard. They actually began to believe what was written about them, and after it was...
And the Panorama programme brought all that out. It brought all the bad things out in the people themselves. You know, they made people believe what they was doing was somehow noble, something like that. And really, it wasn't. You know, it was just damaging football and Millwall Football Club as a whole, like, you know.
I think the press seem to overdo it. It's mainly because, I suppose, of Millwall. I mean, there's other clubs who've got their bad supporters, but Millwall, you get them and they seem to have nailed us to the floor. I think even this season, if something had really gone wrong this season, we'd have been nailed to the floor. I think they're most unfair. They seem to overdo it. I mean, the Ipswich game in the cup tie when we lost 6-1, there's a bit of trouble over in the stands, and mainly I think what I see, because I was in the seats myself, that people were just getting out of the way of a bit of trouble over there, and the papers made it out as though there was a riot down there, which was totally out of order. And if I may say this, Robson, who was Ipswich manager at the time, he really slurred Millwall supporters, which I thought was totally out of order.
On television and in the press, pictures have had their effect. On the one hand, violence has become more visible and less tolerable, while on the other, some supporters have been prepared to glory in the publicity and to act up to the cameras. In fact, similar incidents have become frequent throughout the country. But Millwall lived up to its poor reputation and continued to be singled out in coverage and in calls for punishment. The authorities have come to see the problem as one of crowd control. Measures have been steadily strengthened. Policing is heavy. The experience of going to a football match now includes being herded by police with horses and dogs and close surveillance. At Millwall, the view of the game is restricted by cages and spikes, as supporters are firmly separated. Arrivals are subjected to body searches. A wide range of behaviour is now interpreted as hooliganism, and the whole crowd has felt the consequences of a hardening of police and public attitudes towards football fans.
They treat us like dirt. I think for most football supporters, they herd you about, they push you around, they want the slightest excuse to give you a tough time, not just because we're Millwall, because we're football supporters. At home they're okay because we sort of know a lot of them sort of from seeing them at home games. Away games it's different because we only go out to sort of like see other teams once a season. It's always been bad. I don't know if it's getting much better.
Like you go to, especially like Leeds or somewhere like that, you get the old bill up there. They want to prove themselves that because it's Millwall, they are shit. 27th of April, Millwall. Like that's it. I don't know. They seem to put on their war gear and they just want to treat you like animals. Don't get me wrong. Some of us do deserve to be treated like that, but not all of us. And that's what they got to remember.
There are certain police forces in the country. They seem to have an attitude of us and them. They seem to think that they try and prove that they're tougher than Millwall, and the majority of people now just want to go for the football. I think like the club's turned around in the past few years. I don't think hooliganism is major at all. I think a lot of them like seem to want a lot of police do incite trouble. I think any bit of bad language, it takes two of them. They come down and nick a little 13-year-old, and that only causes more trouble because people try and stop it.
That was the overwhelming feeling when we come away from Luton. Not that there'd been trouble, but the effect it was going to have in the papers the next day. You knew they was going to give us stick all the time, whether it's justified or not. And that actual events at Luton was actually caused like the Hillsborough disaster, where there were so many people crammed into one end. One bloke climbed over the fence to get St John's Ambulance Brigade man from the other end of the pitch because his mate was getting crushed. He's gone over the fence, everyone's seen him doing it, so they followed him. They all got on the pitch. Once the police had lost control, that was it. They was never going to gain control. The only way to gain control was to get them out of the area.
See, the problem there is, anyone listening to that who's not in any... most people, even if they don't follow football at all, have deep opinions about football and its supporters will say, they're just apologists, say, But in fact, it is easily controlled, football. There's no such thing as organised football violence. What you've got is disorganised football violence. If it was organised, the police would sort it out like that, and do most weeks. There's not fights at most football matches. The overwhelming majority, there's not fights out and not trouble out. But when it breaks down and someone like Luton was too mean to get the police in and also wanted to grab every shilling they could out of an important cup tie, estimated Millwall would bring about 3,000 supporters, they turned up with 10, then they threw their hands up because there was... I mean, if you look, the only bit of footage you ever see of Luton is the orange seats getting thrown at police, which was edited by the BBC. There was actually a 50-minute gap between the end of the game and that happening, but the BBC cut it on as if it was a planned thing, all coming on, fits the bill. Got Motson back out the bar to commentate on it. He had no idea what was going on. There's a riot. But you had too many people in one end of the ground. You've got a few numbskulled Herberts come over the fence. A load followed them. Police started running away. They chased them. The police chased them back. They chased the police chased them back, and it was all over. Riot. Worst night in British football. Photos all around the world. Must have been at least 10 people killed, weren't there, that night? What are we going to do about this terrible football violence? We're all going to be murdered in our beds. You know. I've written a thing once saying it's just a bit... Football is a useful thing for newspapers and politicians. I mean, political football's no mean phrase here. It's a good thing. Law and order, control these football supporters. The football supporters are the sons and daughters of most of the people who buy the papers. They don't recognise it as that because there's this cartoon image of a football supporter. If you don't agree with me, I'm going to smash you already.
There were serious troubles in Luton at the 1985 Cup match, both in and around the ground. Local homes were damaged. This was taken to be evidence of the uncontrollable nature of all supporters.
Mrs. Thatcher was enraged to find newspapers filled with reports of Millwall thuggery at Luton, while her own diplomatic triumph at Moscow was relegated to the inside pages.
Luton's response was to ban away supporters, and it provided the Conservative government with the occasion to clamp down on football as a whole.
The Prime Minister is determined to use all her influence with the Football Association.
The culmination was the government's controversial identity card scheme. Even as the club fought its way into the First Division, the newspapers continued to target Millwall, making the most of any incident.
Please God, don't let Millwall win promotion.
1985 saw Millwall in crisis. Hooliganism, bad publicity, and falling gates resulted in the club's near collapse. But Millwall has been resurrected by new policies, new investment, and fresh sponsorship. It has finally given the supporters what they have longed for all these years: success and entry into the First Division. Central to the new approach was cooperation with local authorities to introduce a radical community scheme aimed at bringing football closer to local people. The scheme includes the over-50s club, women's football, and anti-racist work in local schools. But it does not address the central problems of football, of which Millwall has more than its fair share. It is not an anti-hooligan scheme. And many of the young men who support the club may well feel there's nothing in it for them.
It's never really been a family game. Like, the father will take their son, but it's never sort of... Mothers don't come down here. I mean, there are women down here, which is, you know, good. I hope they enjoy it. But it's never. It's not really a family club. It's not a family game. Football really is it's for working class men. Yeah. I mean, if women come, it's great. I hope they enjoy it. But you don't have to sort of change everything just purely for them.
The community scheme is a good idea. It's made a big difference to Millwall. I mean, they've managed to attract more youngsters down to the Den, which has been hard to do in the past, and they're doing things which probably I don't get involved in so much outside of the community, like what's it called, a creche where they take the kids before the game, and a lot more with the invalid people, and the players are involved in the schools of Lewisham, and it's setting a good example over, and it's promoting Millwall to people who wouldn't normally get associated with Millwall.
In the school holidays we come down and Ron takes us all out and we go all around and play football, and like yesterday we went up Blackheath and we went all through the woods and that, and then when we got to the end we played a game of football and just go around in the van, and then the day before we went up Greenwich and played football. We just still go, and it's really good.
I've been coming with Christopher here for the last couple of seasons regularly, and he's in a wheelchair, and I was pleasantly surprised when I first came here that we were allowed in to and had a special place here. Over the last couple of seasons though, that's gradually improving. There's a lot more concern, there's a lot more disabled supporters coming anyway, and also we've been on to many away trips.
People don't think of Millwall the same way that they used to think of Millwall. It's going to get bigger. Well, I hope it's going to get bigger, and it's going to concern more supporters. But at the moment, he's dealing mainly with sort of like the area, children, and it's aimed at the press, really, and that's good. But I feel it's got to grow towards the supporters more and get supporters more involved with the club and the running of the club.
Away goes Callaghan. Kevin O'Callaghan now with Cascarino in a bit of space in the middle. Can he hold off long enough? He scores! And Millwall are back in it with 11 minutes gone. A goal the home side were desperate for, and their leading striker has provided it. Tony Cascarino.
Well, what a good ball from Kevin O'Callaghan. He played it out early. Cascarino did well under pressure, held off the defender, and then the left foot across, Brian got into the far corner. That was a super strike.
Millwall 1, Norwich City 2. 3 minutes of the first half remaining. Burlock to Morgan. Sheringham to Morgan. A great little run by him, and Cascarino! And he's hit there by Coulter!
For the present government, football is an unwarranted irritant, a nuisance it neither understands nor cares about, an old-fashioned form of working-class expression that for them is unpredictable and dangerous. But those at Millwall who are launching a new supporters club believe that the solutions must come from within.
Well, basically, it was set up by us as a group of friends, really to gain a voice at Millwall as supporters, almost like a supporters union in a sense. We want to be recognised by the club. Of course we are for the club. We want to represent the man who stands on the terraces day and day out watching Millwall play. They've got a junior line club, they've got a old age pensioners club, but they haven't got anything representing the supporters.
I thought we used to take people for granted. That's all it was. Oh, they turn up every week. People used to get 18,000 gates here, and they're in the 3rd and 4th division regular. We just took it for granted, and over the last couple of years, people have said that's enough.
We intend to get enough members so that we can not start a revolution, but force our way into recognition, and we want to gain representation on the board so that we can have our voice. The council, the Lewisham Council, gives £70,000 a year to Millwall, and they've got representation on the board. Supporters give about £1.5 million a year. We think someone representing those supporters deserves a place on the board.
Thousands of supporters continue to follow Millwall with passion and loyalty. They do not go simply to watch, but to participate. They see the game as theirs. But football's problems remain deeply ingrained in the traditions and structures of the game itself. Like other Football League clubs, Millwall is strongly opposed to the imposition of government schemes. And yet its own community scheme will not convert potential hooligans into the kind of family audience described by television commentators. Few people around here would want the game to become sanitized in this way. It remains to be seen whether Millwall's new policies can develop in a way that can challenge the heavily masculine culture of the game without alienating traditional supporters. But if football's problems have grown out of traditional patterns of support, many supporters feel that the solutions will come out of those traditions too. For those who follow football, the game can provide some of the most inspiring moments of their lives. At present, football itself is under threat, but Millwall supporters are determined to see the game and their club not only survive, but flourish.
Millwall is part of my life. I mean, without Millwall, wouldn't be worth living. It's part of, it's like oxygen to me. I just have to have it, like, you know. It's just something you can't live without.
You miss them for a couple of weeks, and well, it's like an alcoholic going without a drink, isn't it?
It is a life sentence in the best possible way. It's a life sentence. We know that.
If you're not there, you feel disloyal.
What I feel about Millwall is like I would feel about any of my family. You know, you love your family and you love Millwall Football Club.
I will say now, I'm getting on now, but I will say I will follow Millwall to the end of my life.
It's like a religion. It's like faith, really. You follow them through thick and thin.